Alright, then let's get quickly started with our wrapper classes today. Yesterday we learned about expressions language, and we saw that it's really fun working with expressions language. And we learned some implicit objects of servlet events and listeners, right? And we saw that how we can override those servlet listeners, right? Listener classes, like we had attribute listener, or let me see context. What do you want to do when the context of the servlet is initialized, right? We created a connection. What do you want to do when a session has started, right? If there is anything that you want to do when the session is started or the session is destroyed. All right, so these wrapper classes often are helpful in software development. Once you complete and once you turn your let's say about once you convert your knowledge into as that of software developer, right, and you try to develop softwares, complex solutions, and small solutions or bigger solutions, whatever they may be. So these things are really helpful, right? Because we require tools at our disposal to develop softwares and to prepare solutions for the corporate, right? So these are very important tools that we learned yesterday, and today we are going to start with a very important tool today as well. That is going to be wrapper classes. And what are wrapper classes? Once we started Java, once we were quite young in computer sciences, right? We started with Java, and we learned about wrapper classes, right? And wrapper classes in Java are those objects, right? Or the objects wraps or contains a primitive data type. When we create an object of a wrapper class, it contains a field, right? And we can store a primitive data type. In other words, we can wrap a primitive value into a wrapper class object, right? So that's to be more precise. For example, if I show you this demonstration of wrapper classes, all right, I can go ahead and let me go ahead and show you a small demonstration. So exp sample is good enough for me to show you this. So let me go ahead and run exp again. All right, so we have this exp servlet running now. Let me give you some example of wrapper class. If for example, if I say int x is equivalent to 10, right, and I can say out dot print ln x. So I can use x. I can say out dot print ln x, right, and I can reload it. Okay, we're getting 10. So this is what you already know. So I don't have to explain anything in here. But yeah, now for example, if I do something like this, right, x dot to string. So it's not going to be printed. X cannot be printed as a string because, right, it is a primitive data type. You require to wrap it up, right? So now for example, if I now say instead of int, if I use, let's say about int x is equivalent to 10, int y is equivalent to 20, and int z or z is equivalent to assignment of x plus y. We are assigning the sum of x plus y, x plus y to z, and then we can say I want to print it as string. What is the fun, right? So now we can even change this. We can change it to integer, right? So instead of int, we can change it to integer. Now you can see that to string works absolutely fine. Now you're printing data as string, right? 30, right? So you're printing data as string. Now you call the primitive data type right here. It's clearly an example, all right? Or what we can do, we can say integer x is equivalent to new integer, right, integer, let's say about, we'll supply a value of 10 right here. Okay, now we can even do this. So while we're creating an object of integer class, now if I go inside this integer class, right, now you can clearly see, right, there are some possibilities, or there are some values. You can clearly see that this contains toString as well, right? So it's the integer class that contains toString, right? It contains getChars and each and everything. So now this is basically a wrapper class of a primitive data type int, right? So we can now say x dot to string, so that is not going to show any sort of error, right? It's not going to show us any error. So that's also possible in wrapper classes, right? And we can even use compare to if you want to use compare to. So I can say out.print, right? I can say out.print x.compare to, because compare to will be used with integer 10. So now, right, x compared to 10, we are printing it out, so we're getting 0, right? If you're comparing x, which is 10, and we're comparing 10 with 10, it's going to be 0. So now if I compare 10 with 20, so we should get what? 1, right? Or we can use compare to, right? And this is basically what this is called as. I'll just simply try and make you understand. If I declare this integer x is equivalent to 10, right? And here what we are doing, it's called as boxing, right? So we are boxing it, right? Wrapping it up, right? Boxing, right? So now I say, for example, out.print x dot, or we can say x dot compare to, let's say 5, right? And now we are getting the results, right? We'll get 1, yeah. All right. So now we can clearly see, we can even do this, x is equivalent to x plus 10. All right. So you're assigning what is x. X is 10 already. You are reassigning it. X plus 10, which is 10 plus 10, 20. So right. So you can again do out.print x. Right. Now you can do x dot to string. You want to print it as string, so that's not a problem, because you're using wrapper classes, right? Here. So we get 120, 1 and 20. So basically we are getting 1 and then we are getting 20. So we'll have to use println so that we get the result being printed in the next line rather than the same line, right? So now you can see that there is a space. We're not going to next line, but yeah, there's a particular type of space. Now, so this process right here is known as unboxing. So boxing and unboxing are both there, right? So this is both. Now wrapper classes. Now let me show you this demonstration of wrapper classes, right? So the main wrapper class basically is, let me show you this demonstration. So we have the main class being the wrapper class main object. Oh, what happened? I don't know. Okay, we are going with background color. Sorry. So the main class right here is going to be an object object class, right? And now object class will have the following things, right? So let me give you the detailed overview of this particular thing. So we have the object class, and object has this particular thing, and it has this particular thing, and it has one more particular thing. So let me take it down here and let me make it something like this. Alright, so I made the diagram so that you guys understand what is coming and where it is coming from, right? So that's very important for us to understand. Okay, so we have the object class, right? And this object class will always give us this, a class which is known as number. Alright. Let me create a bit space here because I want to diagram it properly, right, so that I don't face any problem here. All right, so it gives us a class known as number class, and it gives us remaining two classes. I'll just try and build them here. All right, okay, right, 1 and 2 right here. Okay, now we have the three classes that are coming from, that are wrapped up in objects. So I'll say number. So the first class is number class, right, and the second one is Boolean, and the third one is character, which is often known as character, right, or we can say char, right. You can even call this as char, right. So these are three classes which are coming from object class, right, inheriting from this main object class, right. So the main wrapper class is object. Now you can clearly see here, right. I'll use arrows so that you know what is coming, right, and where it is going to. All right, and now we have the number class giving us these classes. Now you can see number class is giving us these classes right here. 1, 2, so I'll use 3, I'll use 4, 5, right, and 6. So there are 6 classes which are wrapped up in number. All right, so those 6 classes are number 1. So let me get started right away with these boxes. Let me make these boxes. All right, so now you can clearly see how many are coming. That's point number 1, class number 2, class number 3, class number 4, class number 5, class number 6. Okay, now the number has byte. Number, we start with byte. We never knew that it comes from the wrapper class number. Then we have short, right, and let me just have all of them. All right, and after short we have the main integer class, right. So we have integer, right, and then we have long, right, we have float, right, and we have double, and the capital, the first word is capital right here, right. So you'll have to imagine that the first word is always capital, and it will always remain capital. All right, as I said, they're always capital. You can see byte, B is capital, short, S, I, L, F, and are capital. They are wrapper classes for byte. So this is, now you can clearly see they are wrapper classes for byte and short. And we have int, and we have long, and here we have float, small. They're all small, and the wrapper classes are capital. And now you can clearly see that integer, int has a wrapper class integer, short also has a wrapper class short, and long has long, right. So you can use all the wrapper classes, right. So I'll share with you guys this. So for example, if I use float, f is equivalent to new float, right, and I'll say 10.66, right. So I can use out.print ln f dot to string. So this is not going to cause any problem. So we are going to get the desired result, right? 10.66, right? So now if I say float x is equal to 10.66, so now if I now do x dot to string right here, right, you can see that there's an error. Right, so we can say 5.0 is a floating in possibly loss of from double to float. So I can use double as well, but it's not a double value. So let me use float y. Let's say 0.77. 1.3, I don't know. Okay, let's use double. Maybe some problem. So now if I use double and I say y dot to string, we'll not be able to do y dot to string because it's not a wrapper class. Now if you want to call a wrapper class, that is D is capital, then you call a wrapper class. Here you're calling a wrapper class. Clearly you can see now it's working fine, and that's why I designed this for you guys, so that you understand the main logic behind wrapper classes. Alright, so let's start using servlet wrapper classes. For example, let's say we have this servlet right here. Okay, sample servlet, right? And we are going to use this as a wrapper class, right? So we are going to use it with the wrapper class rather than as a wrapper class, right? So let me show you. Okay, we still have some time left, so we just started, right? Okay, so let's carry on. So let's include two wrapper classes. So I'll go ahead with, I'll just close listeners. I will make a new folder. So I'll make a new Java package rather. So I'll say WRAPPE wrapper classes. So now we have the class. So I am going to make a wrapper class here. I'm making it, right? So I have to override something, right? For example, I want to override request. So I'll make this as my request, my request class. Now I'll extend. Now I have to use the servlet request wrapper. There are two wrappers that servlets provide us: servlet request wrapper class and servlet response wrapper class. So I'll be using extends. So I'll say extends HttpServletRequest wrapper. So I'll say it is going to use a class known as HttpServletRequest wrapper. Why? And here what are we going to do? Add a constructor. We have to override a constructor here. So we are overriding a constructor. Alright, and after that what we have to do right here, let's make a request HttpServletRequest. So let's make an object of HttpServletRequest or request request. Alright, and we are even accepting request right here. So whenever we call my class, whenever we make an object of this my request class, this class will automatically call this constructor and will have to pass one parameter to the constructor, which is the request. So we'll say we call this request. So I'll say this dot request is equivalent to R. So for example, this is REQ, right? So whenever you call this request right here, so HttpServlet request. So whenever you make an object of my request class, this is automatically called and you're passing the request right here. So this request goes to this request. So what is the problem here? So I don't know. REQ. So let me save this first. Alright. First we have to call the super constructor and then we'll have to do this. Alright. So REQ. Let us deploy this. I don't know, some kind of an error. Okay, no error. So I will go ahead and say this means within this class I'm calling this request is equivalent to request. So now this request is passed to this request whenever you make an object. You know this is simple basic object-oriented methodology. So we have one attribute of the request, HTTP servlet request, that is we always do request.get parameter and request.set parameter. Let's override one, a public string get. So let's override this. So I'll say string name, right? So let's override this public string. So I'll just add an override annotation. We're overriding this get parameter which belongs to HTTP servlet request wrapper. Now whenever we call get parameter, whenever you do request.get parameter, this is going to be called. For example, if I do string val is equivalent to request request dot get parameter name. Right, whenever you call request.get parameter, you supply one argument. Right, we always do this. Now whenever we say request.get parameter, we supply one argument, the name of the element, right? So that's what we are doing. The name goes and we are saving it in a value known as string val. And I say if name dot equals, right? Let's say about if name dot equals email. If the name is email, now what you've got to do is, all right, what I intend doing is, for example, I'll show you the example right here, right? I want to use the HTTP request wrapper class to automatically add niit.com, right? Or we can say suffix niit.com with the name, right? For example, if I enter Fahim, it should be concatenated automatically like Fahim @niit.com. Right, so if you enter your name as Fahim, so @niit.com should always be prefixed. So @niit. I want this to be automatically done, right? So that's what I say. If you are getting the request, if the request.parameter is name only, yani email, right? If you then request, whenever you do request.get parameter, you supply one parameter. If that parameter is equivalent to email, right? Then what is going to happen is you'll say if. So you will say val is equivalent to val plus @niit.com, right? And I will say return val, right? So I return the val, okay? So string value is equal to request.get parameter. If that is email, you do one thing, concatenate @niit.com with the val and return like that. So we save this as a wrapper class now. So let's see how do we use this kind of a wrapper class, right? And we can even see that how do we use this. So we'll have to use it, yeah. Okay, let's carry on and start using the wrapper class right here. All right, we even have to use the response wrapper, right? We just use the request wrapper, and we still can use second thing that's known as the response wrapper, right? So we'll use that as well. Okay. Okay, so let's start doing it in exp sample. So I'll go to example class right here. Okay, so I will make another method right here. Call this as do post, right? Let's create another method. So I'll say protected void, right? PROCESSREQUES or REQUEST. Let's create this process request, and this process request is also going to accept two arguments, that's HttpServletRequest and HttpServletResponse with an exception. So it's always going to throw the exception, which is the servlet exception and the IO exception, right? So now let's go ahead and start doing it right now. Okay, so let's say RESP response dot set content type. Just wait a second, my battery is sinking, so I'll have to use the charger. So I will plug in my charger. I'll plug in my charger first. Just a moment, I'll pause the video by the time I plug in the charger. Alright, now I use the charger. So I say response.set content type. What is the content type that we often say? That is text/html. That is the content type that we have set. Alright, so okay, so let's say a print writer. Let's create an object of print writer, right? So I can say out.println. Now start using println. So this is HTML close, and this is the beginning of HTML, and HTML has a head, and this is the closure of head, and in between we have title, so we will close down the title. So this is already known to you, so I'll say an IIT. Right, so now we'll go to the body section, and I will close down the body section right here, and in between what are we going to do is let's say we are going to print something. Let's say we are going to print let's say h1 tag. So we will say software solutions, maybe. All right, so let's create a table. So I'll say table and just close down this table right here. All right, so inside the table we have a tr, and I will close down the tr. It's called table cell spacing. Cell spacing is equal to 5, and cell padding is equal to 5. And then what is inside here is a td and a table division. So I'll say enter your email, right? So I'll use another td right here and close down the td right, and here I will use input type is equal to text, name is equal to email. So we'll have to match that the name is email, or you can keep it as txt email, right? Okay, and now you'll have to change it in the wrapper class as well. So this is the my request wrapper. If name equals txt email, because I have kept it as txt email right here. Okay, all right. All right. Now I'll go ahead and keep this data, this table data in a form action is equal to self action and method is equal to, so I will be using method as post. All right, so method is post, and I'll close down the form right here. Is that okay now? Okay, let's see what we get. We're not getting anything because we'll have to call this right here. So I will say this dot process request response. So now this process request method is called on get. Now you can say software solutions, enter your email, and one thing that we forgot is input type submit value save. All right, so now we are post. Okay, now you can see method is post, post, post. Spelling mistake, sorry. exp save. So we're not getting anything on post. Why? Because we have to call this method on post. So I'll say this dot process request. So this has to be called on get, and as well as this has to be called on post. Let me have my email. I'll just type Fahim. That's it. All right. So it goes by. So I'll type FHM Fahim. All right. So I save this. So now let's start using the wrapper class. Now I will say string email is equivalent to request dot get parameter, that is txt email. If I say out dot print ln email, so I will get only Fahim. All right, so let's see this. All right, so I'm getting Fahim. So if I say Fahim, right, so I'm still getting Fahim. So now we'll have to use the request to wrapper class right here. So now how do you use the request to wrapper class, right? Because we are doing request dot get parameter, right? Aren't we doing? Right, we are doing request dot get parameter right here. All right, and we may have to typecast the request that we have, right, in order to generate that response from our side, right? And how do you do that? So let's, for example, create, okay, so we're calling the process request function here, all right? But if you imagine, we used filters, right? So we will be using a filter again right here. So in order to override the request and response, so I'll go and I'll say include a new, I'll go to others, I will say filter, right? So I'm using a new filter class and I call this as custom. We are customizing request and response. What am I doing? I'm customizing request and response. So I'll go with filters filters package. So filters package is also going to be created, right? All right, so let's see. I don't want to use deployment descriptor here for this, so I'll just carry on and I'll use this at the rate of a filter annotation, and this is going to be custom request and response filter, and this is going to be run with exp, right? So now you can see that whenever we have a filter, right, for example, when I type exp, this first thing what is going to happen is filter is going to stop it. It's going to be a cross-cutting concern, right? What is cross-cutting concern? So I'll write it down here. For example, we are requesting, a client is requesting for a servlet, right? So let's see. Client, we have a client and he has requested for EXP servlet. Is that so? Yes, it is exactly so. So the client has requested for EXP servlet right here. Now, I don't want to use my EXP servlet because request and response, I want to intercept the request and response, right? So while I do right here, I will intercept both request and response. Right here, I will do one thing. I will intercept. So I'm going to intercept the request and the response mechanism, right? And after intercepting the request and response, and it's not only that I'm intercepting the request. So what am I doing? Request will go to this interceptor and then the request will pass to the servlet. And you clearly see, I'll use the arrow. Request comes and goes and we are passing the same request to the servlet. And then what I do is response. So the servlet, EXP servlet sends us a response and the response is forwarded to the main item of the story, which is the client. Right? So now client is requesting, the request is first intercepted, right? And this interception will happen here, right? So we will be using, to intercept, we will be using filters. Alright, so this is what we will be using to intercept, right? So that means request is intercepted and that request is forwarded to the servlet and the response is also intercepted before it's given back to the client. So that's why we are using, right, this. So that means whenever you type /exp for, I'll show you this, we are nothing to do with these things. So we are going to delete every single thing right here. So we are going to keep right. So we are going to keep alright. We are going to keep only one method right here, which is this method, right? Do filter. Alright, so now we are catching down here request and response, right? For example, I will say out.println and how do you do outer? So I'll say print writer out is equal to response dot get writer. So I'll say out.println hello. Now see this. So now if I type /exp, then I can clear. Okay, it's basically an error here. Let it deploy. All right. So now what are we typing here? We are typing. We're going to do filter, right? And we're typing out.println hello. So now if you want to stop it, okay, let me show you some other example in this. Still have an error right here, so that's why we're getting this. We have to implement all the abstract. Yeah, we were not implementing init and destroy. Okay, let me try it again. Now the filter has no error. All right, so okay, I don't know, I have deleted something right here. I'll go back to the filter and I will keep everything as it is, but I am going to just delete everything in do filter. So this is the method that we are more interested in, right? So we're interested in this method. So let me get rid of this garbage here. I don't know, they write lot many things. I don't know why do they write these things. Alright, so this is what we're interested in. Filter chain, right? So do filter. So do we have any error? We still have some comments. I just hate them. You can keep them if you don't want to delete them. Alright, so this is do filter. So this is the function that's automatically called. So whenever you put an interceptor right here, do filter function is automatically called. Now what I do right here, because I have request and response here, and imagine we are handling and we are working with HTTP request and response. We are not working with normal request and normal response. Our servlets use HTTP request and HTTP response. So let's convert them. HTTP servlet request again. Alright, so let's do this. HTTP servlet request, request request, or we can say my request is equivalent to, or let's say about HTTP servlet request HREQ, which is HTTP servlet request, is equivalent to request. So we'll have to typecast this request, right, or convert or typecast this request to HTTP servlet request. So this is typecasting done, and we don't have to typecast only the request but the response. So I'd say HRES response, so RESPO response, so RESPO response, right? So we typecasted the servlet request and the response to HTTP servlet request and HTTP servlet response. The first thing is done. So now we have a class known as my request. So I'll say my REQ. So I can say my request wrapper class that we have just made. So I'll make an object. So I'll say is equivalent my request. So I'll say my REQ is equivalent to new my request, and now it requires one parameter, which is the request class. Now you can clearly see here my request. Whenever you call and make an object of my request class, you have to pass one parameter, which is the HTTP servlet request wrapper class parameter. So we're passing this parameter right here. That means now the interception is done. The first thing that is going to happen, you put in filter is going to get executed without executing the servlet first. Alright, it's going to intercept, stop the request, convert it to the request, and do these things, whatever we plan to do here. Right, and then we call chain dot do filter request and response. Now we don't have to pass the request and response, we have to pass the my request and my response. I didn't make any my response class yet, so I will pass my REQ as request. Now let us see what happens if I just load. I type FAHIM and I get Fahim at nit.com. I still say, for example, if I type let's say about JAVED Javed, and I say save, I get Javed at nit.com. I can clearly see what we have done here. I repeat what we have done here. Right, the request goes, you're intercepting. Why are you intercepting this request? Because the URL pattern, right? Okay, so the URL pattern, so I'll use EXP here. Okay, so I'll use the same URL pattern, EXP. Okay, all right. So now you can see, because the URL pattern for the servlet, which is /exp, is same as that of the filter, which is /exp. Right? A filter is simple Java class. It's a plain old Java object. It's a POJO class, but it implements a filter interface, right? So the moment it's intercepted, the first thing that is called is do filter. Now what you are doing, right? Do filter, whenever you call do filter, the request and response is there already. You're taking, because it's a plain request and response, converting it back to the HTTP request and response, and the converted request is passed to the my request class. Now you can clearly see, and then you pass, you say do filter, forward the request to the servlet. Now the servlet is not getting the normal request and response. The servlet is getting the filtered request and response. And what is the filtered request and response? You can clearly see right here, request.get parameter is overridden and you're concatenating @anid.com with this. Now, but we have a problem here. If I type Fahim @anid.com, so will I get it twice? Yeah, I'm getting it twice. Fahim @anid.com, @anid.com. So now we can handle this here as well. I can say if name dot, let's say about, ends with, so I say if name ends with if it ends with @NIIT.com, or if it does not, I'll say if it doesn't end with @NIIT.com, then you got to do this, right? All right. So, okay. So this if does not have any body because we have a single statement right here. So let me go ahead and do this. Okay, let's see. If name dot, or not name because it's a val, we are taking request.get parameter, name goes to this val. So I'll say if value dot ends with @NIIT.com. It does not, if it does not end with @NIIT.com. Yeah, now you can say Fahim @NIIT.com. So if I type Fahim, or we can say Zia @NIIT, Srinagar, or we can say NIIT.com. So we're still getting Zia @NIIT.com. If I say ZI only and say save, we're still getting Zia @NIIT.com. So what we are doing, we are overriding the wrapper class, which is HTTP's request wrapper. So let me make a response wrapper as well, because I've shown you in the diagram that it intercepts the request and intercepts the response before it's sent to the client as well. So that's what we are going to do right here. So I'll go to filter and say I will make a new class. So I'll say HTTP we call the HTTP response wrapper. Where is the wrapper class? Request to wrapper. So I'll create a new. I will create a new wrapper class. I will create a new wrapper class. Haha. And I call this as my response. Let's call this as my response wrapper class. And as we extended that from request, so I'll say extends extends from HTTP Servlet response wrapper class, and we are going to override the constructor right here as well. And as we did earlier, so we're going to bring HTTP Servlet response as a response. So I can say this dot response is equal to response. So this dot, whenever you make an object of the class, you pass the HTTP Servlet response object. So that goes to this object. So now you are going to use request.get parameter. It's already used. Maybe we will use, okay, we have this response.set content type, right? So we can use that as well. For example, we have public void set content. Maybe TYPE is capital and it takes one parameter string type, and you can use this. So JSP-Servlets response.set content type as text/HTML. Alright. So I'll use an override annotation here. Alright, so that thing is done. So we have the response wrapper. and we're calling this of the response set content type, and we're overriding this set content type. And let me show you a demonstration of this as well. How do we do ahead and how do you go along with this? So now we have this right here. We already set the response.set content type to text/html. Why? What if I set it to IMA image/jpeg? So I'm setting the content type to image/jpeg now. So now you can see you will be getting the content of the, you'll be getting over your browser, right? The content will be given as, or will be rendered as an image. So you'll be getting the rendered output as an image because the content type is image/jpeg. So I'll show you how we can basically use the request and response wrapper with the help of filter. All right, filter is just, what is filter? Cross-cutting concern. I repeat, it's cross-cutting concern. What do you mean by cross-cutting concern? It is basically interception. Right here, stop, you were doing that, don't do that, do this. So that's what we call intercept. You intercept, right? Okay, so now what I do right here, I'll go to my filter class again. Right, so that is my custom request and response filter. So I have not passed the filter right here, so I will pass this filter and I'll say my response. So I'll make an object of my response, my RESP is equivalent to new my response, and I'll have to pass one parameter right here, which is the rendered, which is the converted response. That's HttpServletResponse I'm passing because the constructor accepts one parameter. Now you can see the constructor here accepts one parameter, so we're passing HttpServletResponse. Why? Because the constructor accepts HttpServletResponse, so we pass HttpServletResponse, and that's the main reason why we are converting request and response to HttpServletRequest and response, because both the request and response wrapper classes accept HttpServletRequest and response in the constructor as an argument, right? So now we'll do chain.doFilter. I'll pass this my response class here. Now what we are doing here in my response, we are converting, we say response.set content type is HTML, so we're intercepting it, doesn't matter. Now you can clearly see, right? So if I don't use this, if I just close it down in the filter, because we are using image/jpg in the servlet, so we cannot override it. Now you can see right here, so this is image/jpg. Now what we are doing here in this set content type, or we can even use this here, image/jpg, so you can use both ways, and you can clearly see it's being overridden. So now I'll say text/html, it goes to text/html. That's what we are doing basically. We're rendering and we're passing it, right? So what is happening, right? I'll give you the brief and description of all that has happened and that's happening across here. Right, what is happening here? You send the request, you have interceptor calls the custom request and the custom response, and you override two methods, that is set content type and get parameter. It's very simple, right? And do practice this and let me know if I can help you. And it's very important for complex software development in the near future using struts. You are going to use struts framework and you are going to use the interceptors technology pretty well, and you need to be well versed about this and keep all the tools ready, right, for fighting big or developing big projects. I wish you all the best. See you tomorrow. Bye bye. Take care and do practice.